We could talk about problems in our society. There are a few problems that are so catastrophic and so influential on our lives that the issue must be addressed. Today we're going to take a look at the 5 worst problems in America. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take a look at these 5 worst problems in America, and we're going to start with 5 and count down to number 1. It starts off with a quote: "The government, the government big enough to give you 30 days." Also goes on to read, "Our republic was founded on principles of individual liberty, limited government, and respect for private property." Respect for private property is now gone. The support ruled a few years ago that government can seize you for whatever reason they seize your property. They're gearing up to seize property. The federal government now gets $150 billion of corporate welfare each year. $100 billion per year is simply wasted. Government doesn't seem to be terribly limited anymore. You see where they're taking from the little guy, taking from the common man, your property, seizing whatever they want from you. At the same time, they have this thing about giving billions of dollars to corporate companies that already hold billions of dollars. Well, we all know that's because it benefits them in the long run with donations, campaign donations, and such, getting kickbacks. So let's read further. Further, as of January 2008, China, a potentially hostile nation, owns nearly $500 billion of our debt, or about a quarter of the entire foreign total. Hostile Middle East countries own nearly another $150 billion. So what does this mean for us? Potential for the foreign veto power over us virtually amounting to blackmail. And I must say that this article and these statistics are from 2008. Of course, it's substantially higher now. But let's go on to read a little further. To cover this outrageous sprawling bureaucracy, the government takes about a third of our incomes annually. I hope you heard that. They take a third of our incomes annually, a third, that meaning 4 months out of a year is taken. The most productive members of society are disproportionately targeted as victims of this issue. For example, as of 2001, the title of sport 50%, 90.0%. And if you haven't seen that, it's let's see here, 96.3% of income taxes. So you have the top earners bringing in over 96% for the rest of the country. Meanwhile, they're taking 4 months of a year's pay from the American people. Let's read further. America's workforce must labor about the first third of the year just to cover the government's expenses before they start taking dollars every year, all while being completely counterproductive. As I said, where people were paid to prove in lost market value of US at 1.4. You see that here, $1.4 trillion. So individual liberty is severely curtailed. And most recently, the socialist subprime mortgage bailout, courtesy of Uncle Sam, with its frozen interest rates, will only further hurt the economy to the tune of $20 to $20 billion hard earned. As I said, this is an estimate from 2008. As you know, it is 2013, so this amount is substantially higher now. You can see where our people lack because our government lacks, and we'll get to that a little further here with number 4. Let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 says individual fiscal responsibility. So we got or irresponsibility, I should say. So let's start with a quote. God gave the world to men in common, but he gave it to the use of the industrious and rational. And labor was to be his title to it, not to the fancy or covetousness of the quarrelsome and contentious. That quote is from John Locke. U.S. citizens now spend more than we make each year, creating a negative savings rate. Since 2005, we've lost all budgetary restraint as a nation. We now keep less money than at any time since the Great Depression. This is stifling because as technology has increased and our knowledge has increased, we've seemed to go on backwards instead of forwards. So it's a shame to say that people who grew up in the 50s and 60s were able to pay off their homes, but people here now in the 21st century are now homeless. Why? Because government caters to banksters and large corporations. Let's read on. And don't forget the runaway consumer credit debt among our self-disciplined, efficient society is now about $2.5 trillion. $2.5 trillion. Now, you got to take a look further at this situation, and you can find us on our website, www.lol.org. Once again, that's www.lol.org. And make an effort to let the public know about this situation, about this world economy, and being by design and what they can do to make sure that they have LOLMIN.org. Sure this is by design. You put that, and you'll receive a lot of information on how to prepare for this economic crisis. Now, let's go to number 3. Number 3 reads the decline of morality in media, and this hits dead on, I should say. A definite decline in morality in media, and it has greatly affected our young people. So let's go ahead and read it. We'll start with a quote. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government County, it's like movies with content lower now a PG, and that's a shame. Let's read further. A disturbing 2001 PBS special chronicles in detail how the youth-oriented music and film industries manipulate their products to pander to the worst impulses of juveniles. Pockets, but there are other ills in place that are much worse than having your pocket picked, like being given an agenda or making you take on and you see a lot of things when music should not be there, and listen to a large array of music to actually listen not to the beat but to the words themselves. Ask yourself, what are they trying to get you to accept? And I think you'll be astonished with what you might find. Reading further, depravity sells. Showed how another series of actually the model much, and then sleazy doll, sleazy children, sleazy girls. As the article put it, the new that off. I don't know. So sleazy doll, sleazy little girls, and 18. Now, how much the 13 video games verdict amongst you that devastating effect on children. These atrocious models now, and the last people now. And before we get to the problems, we should problem here with the Nevada shooting, Nevada school shooting. The thing I have to say is victims like black officers shooting reality. To video concerning Nevada school shooting, we're going to go to that video now. And go back to the original screen. So as you can see, once again, another kid goes into school, in this case a 13-year-old. shoots a teacher who was ex-military, and eventually turns the gun on himself. He also wounded two other students of his. And I have to say, we don't know what occurred. We don't know if this young man was bullied or what type of situation he was going through. Um, but we have to take into account that these video games that teach kids to shoot and to kill and to even how to use guns can be nothing but propaganda. Um, I don't understand why the government would allow these type of video games of children shooting each other or shooting and killing, yet they won't put out games about how to talk down violence, how to calm people down from violence. Instead, our education lacks, yet we put out more games about shooting. And as I said, once their mind is destabilized, they can't differentiate between reality and the game. So let's move on, and I could talk about that all night, and that is a serious problem in this country. But let's move on. Number 2, the decline of literacy in education. Once again, we start with a quote. A popular government without popular information is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. That quote is from James Madison. A recent study found that we have now reached the point where only 1 out of 2 American high school students in major cities even graduates. Let me say that again. Let me put it in layman's terms. 50% of our students in major cities, only 50% graduate. It's time to wake up, people. 1 out of 2 American high school students in major cities even graduates. A 2007 study by the National Endowment for the Arts proved that Americans not only read far less than previous generations, but they read far less well. And this decline has major detrimental effects in the real world. Let's take a look at those effects. A, American 15-year-olds ranked 15th in average reading scores for 31 industrialized nations, behind Poland, Korea, France, Canada, among many others. B, let's take a look at B. So obviously there's a reading problem. So let's take a look at B. Literary readers are more likely than non-readers to engage in positive civic and individual activities, such as volunteering, attending sports or cultural events, and exercising. So you see where it spills over into the community. It spills over into taking care of your physical attributes, taking care of yourself. And most importantly, as it said, culturally. See, the thing about it is, I've lived in places throughout the course of my life that have been places with people with small minds, people who lack culture. And I've noticed among those places that the people are more apt to be on food stamps and welfare. Now, I'm not against food stamps or welfare. I think it has its place as a social safety net, and that people should be able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps after being on welfare and on food stamps for a little while. And everybody generally should be on food stamps for 20 years. The mother on food stamps, it shouldn't happen. So you understand this. Literacy has to do with all of this, because the small mind places tend to have problems reading. I attended one of the best universities in our country, the University of Pittsburgh, and I noticed there that there were very few physical acts of violence, very few disputes among people, because they were intellectuals. And as intellectuals, they learn to get along with one another and talk out their differences. Most importantly, learn about each other's culture. As I said, literacy promotes culture. So we have to get better with our literacy. So let's take a look at the number one from 2008, I must add. The number one is the decline of the traditional family. Oh, as we did with the others, let's begin with a quote. Civilizations die from suicide, not by murder. And that's from Arnold Toynbee. As with media violence, the long-term damage done to children and society at large by family decay is starkly revealed by a slew of research. Children in intact nuclear families are statistically better off in virtually every way. So when the nuclear family is in place, the children are better nurtured and able to do better and become statistically better off. Among the seemingly endless varieties of emotional shrapnel that have embedded themselves in the American psyche as a result of people's selfishness is the shocker, and I want you to hear this. One of every four teenage girls has at least one sexually transmitted disease. I'll say that again. One out of every four teenage girls has at least one sexually transmitted disease. That's not just another issue in our country, that is a pandemic. Wake up. I'm saying this to wake you up so you understand that we have to go after our generations. This is not a game. So, as I've stated a couple times, this article is from 2008. To help us a little more with the number one issue of today, we go to, once again, our screenshot of a man named Cenk Uygur, who breaks down for us, gives a little help to, here in 2013, the number one problem, the number one worst problem in the United States. If you wait for fate, you deserve the fate that awaits you. And once again, thank you from TYT, also known as the Young Turks, leader of the Young Turks. You can find him on YouTube. So in conclusion tonight, we must do something to better our country and to prepare for the futures of our generations. Or it may be the end of the world as we know it. Or maybe that's what they hope for. This is Keith Pitts reporting for Independence Nation. I'll see you next time.